There's a hurricane on the way. It's supposed to be one of the most dangerous hurricanes we've seen in a while. But here I am in my office, gonna give you the official picks for a UFC Apex card, okay? Priority, boys. But in reality, let's be real here, just a little announcement before we get into the official picks. We could lose power here. I live in Florida, and I don't know what's gonna happen. This is my first hurricane. I'm not exactly in the direct path, but we could lose power. So if I am not able to post, you know why. And I'm also supposed to be having my first child, supposed to be born next week. So I'm going to be going through a little bit of a rough patch here as far as getting content out. I'm going to try to do my best to try to stay up to date with everything. But the layout could look a little bit different. Might have to record some stuff on my phone. We'll see. I'll try to keep you guys updated. But you can always stay up to date with everything going on at HeyJoyPicks on Instagram. That's probably my most active platform. So just a little announcement before we get into the picks, but we got some fights to break down for you. I already gave you the early picks. I am going to be switching up a couple just through further research. I've kind of decided the way that I want to go about it, but I'll leave you with the official pick. Gun to your head. The cartel is waterboarding you, saying who do you think is going to win the fight? That's what we're going to do right here. Started with the first fight of the night. Clayton Carpenter, Lucas Rocha. Or initially. Clayton Carpenter, pretty good grappler. Lucas Rocha, UFC debut. And I went with Clayton Carpenter. But after further review, I have to give some respect to Lucas Rocha. And I am going to take him for a pick. Because when I thought back to Rocha's Contender Series fight, I just remember him getting grappled up. And then him landing the knee. And I was like, okay, can't always land a knee when a guy's going to grapple you up, and I think Clayton Carpenter's got pretty good grappling. But I don't think so, man. I think Lucas Rocha, those takedowns that were going on the Contender Series, he was actually defending most takedowns. The only takedowns that Bittencourt was getting on him were literally pick up and slams. Now, every time he was down on the ground, he was working his way back up right away. Bittencourt started to slow down, started to get very telegraphed with his shots, and that's where he capitalized. And then I looked more into the regional scene with Rocha, and he defends takedowns pretty well. He sees stuff coming from a mile away. He's got good sprawls. He's got good instincts, and he's very composed. On the feet, he's not the biggest power puncher, but he has very good timing, pretty solid volume, good cardio. And on the Carpenter side, he's been out for nearly 2 years. And honestly, I look back at his fights, I don't think his striking is very good. He throws hard, but it's not very technical. I think Rocha's a much more technical fighter. And his takedowns aren't very good. Once he gets you down to the ground, then he could look pretty solid. But most of his takedowns, not impressed. So I am going to go with Lucas Rocha here as an underdog to start off the night, just because I think he's going to have a better cardio. I think he can stuff takedowns. And on the feet, I think he's the cleaner striker. And I can trust this guy to be composed. If Carpenter is going in there trying to just spam takedowns and look for stuff, Rocha's very solid. And at 17-1, more professional MMA experience, still very young. I got to go with him here. Give me the Brazilian Lucas Rocha to start the night. Moving along, we got Dan Argueta, Cody Haddon. I wanted to get to a Dan Argueta side, but I'm just not going to. I think Argueta is going to push the pace early and look for those takedowns, and he could have some success, but he doesn't really have the best top pressure. His striking is not very good, and he does slow down. We've seen him have great first rounds. He's going to get takedowns. He's just a very, very strong wrestler, and he can get takedowns. But other than that, I think Cody Haddon's just going to be able to weather the storm and look pretty good round 2 into round 3. And I think he could maybe find a late round knockout. I think Cody Haddon's a very good fighter. I think he can stuff takedowns once he gets past the first round. And I think his jiu-jitsu is good enough for him to not get subbed early. And I think he could maybe catch Dan Argueta with something as well. So UFC debuter here. He is the favorite, but I do think he's very solid. I think his boxing is real nice. So give me Cody Haddon. I could see a late finish or a decision win. And I just don't really trust the gas tank from Argueta. We've seen him slow down. And he's just a really tough guy to deal with early. We'll see how Cody Haddon deals with it, but I do think he gets his hand raised here. Give me Cody Haddon for the official pick. We move on. Julia Polastri, Corey McKenna. I'm always very critical of these Welsh fighters, but the only Welsh fighter I really like is Oban Elliott. Other than that, I don't like any of them. Corey McKenna, I just don't think is that great. I really don't. The loss to Elise Reed was just unforgivable, honestly, because Elise Reed has a terrible ground game, like probably one of the worst in women's UFC. And she was not really looking to take her down. Bad fight IQ. Bad fight IQ. And when she did take her down, she really wasn't doing much. I think Corey McKenna, very overrated. Super short, short arms, on the feet. She's not going to be any type of match for Polastri. Polastri has a ton of volume. She is hittable, but she don't really care. She just walks through it, and she's going to throw hard shots back. Can McKenna get takedowns here? Probably, but I don't think her control on top is that great. I think Polastri has shown up against Jasmine Jasudavicius that even if she is getting grappled up, she could still stay in a fight. And I think Jasudavicius, for one, much bigger than Corey McKenna, and I think a lot better than Corey McKenna. And it was still a very competitive fight between Polastri and Jasudavicius. I think Polastri lands better shots here. She could get taken down, but she could also go to some offensive grappling herself. I think Polastri gets this fight and gets her hand raised. Give me Julia Polastri, the Brazilian. I'll always take the Brazilian over the Welsh. Come on, man. Give me Polastri for the official pick. Moving along. We got a little late addition here because Chris Barnett had to pull out due to the Hurricanes, I believe, because I think he's a Tampa guy, and I think that's the reason he had to pull out. So that sucks. Prayers out to all the people out in Tampa because it's going to be brutal there. I'm glad I'm not over there, but I really feel bad for everybody over there. Either way, he's getting a short notice opponent here in Sean Sharaf. This Sean Sharaf guy, 4-0 in professional MMA, all first-round knockouts. He's built. He's only about 6'2", but I think he probably was a light heavyweight. He put on some pounds. You look at his Instagram before he kind of started professional MMA, or at least earlier on in his professional MMA career. He was a little bit trimmer. He's putting on some pounds to be at heavyweight, which is okay. But he's pretty athletic, dude. Hits hard, but we haven't really seen a ton at the professional MMA scene just because he's knocking dudes out in the first round. I don't know that his cardio is going to be that great, but he does hold power. And it's a kickboxing battle between Junior Tafa. I think Tafa's a solid kickboxer, but, you know, we all know his takedown defense sucks. I don't know if Sharaf's going to implement any type of wrestling. He hasn't shown that at all in his fights, so I don't know that I can really count on him. I'm going to take Junior Tafa, gun to your head type of pick. Give me Junior Tafa. These odds on the screen are completely wrong. Junior Tafa is the favorite, so don't even comment down below. Junior Tafa at +1, it's not real. It's not real. Junior Tafa is the favorite in this matchup. I'm just going to side with him because he's got more UFC experience. It's a kickboxing battle at heavyweight. I don't really like either guy as far as moving up in the UFC. Sharaf could pull off an upset here because it's heavyweight MMA, and he does have power, but I got to go with Junior Tafa. Moving along, we got Themba Gorimbo and Nico Price. I like Themba this week. Nico Price is just so shot. He's shot to bits. He has been shot for a while, even picking up the win over Morono. It was a disgusting fight. Literally just two old dudes with no gas tank throwing just the worst strikes you could ever see in a fight. It's a disgusting fight. I watched it back and I wanted to jump off the balcony, bro. Like, it was just awful. So going into this one, I can't really be like, oh, Nico Price is back. He ain't back. He's been shot. He will always be shot. He's just going in there for paychecks at this point. He's got a lot of kids. Themba Gorimbo on the other side, he's got a little bit more to fight for. He's on a 3-fight winning streak. I think he's got good cardio. I think he's got good wrestling. His striking is going to be a lot more dangerous than Nico Price in this spot. And I think he could probably knock out Nico Price in round 1 if he actually goes for it. We'll see, but I think overall Themba's good enough to not let Nico Price into this fight, and I think he takes over. I think he gets his hand raised. Give me Themba Gorimbo for the official pick. Moving along. We got Jonathan Pearce, Pat Sabatini. One I've kind of gone back and forth on, but I am going to side with the underdog here in Pat Sabatini. I'm not a huge fan of either guy, but I do understand their strengths and I understand their weaknesses. Jonathan Pearce, his strength is just ability to grind out wins. And how does he do that is get you down to the ground, chain wrestle, ground and pound. And I think if he tries to do that here, I think Pat Sabatini, there's a window there for him to just get into a grappling match. And I think he's probably the better overall grappler. I think Pat Sabatini can get takedowns on Pearce. Pearce is not a guy that has very good takedown defense. And he's been thrown in a ton of submissions throughout his UFC career. He's only been submitted once. and that was a ninja choke to Jonathan Brito. But I think Sabatini has some nasty, nasty jiu-jitsu. And even if he doesn't pull off the submission, I think he can ride out some top control. And once the fight hits the ground, that's Sabatini's world. And if that's Jonathan Pearce's game plan, is to go in there and take him down, I think he's kind of playing into it. Jonathan Pearce could find like a ground and pound TKO, could even starch him on the feet, because we know Sabatini's weakness is his striking and his chin. But it's just not really something Jonathan Pearce does. So I'm going to take Pat Sabatini here for the official pick. Moving along. CJ Vergara, Ramazan Temirov. UFC debuter here in Temirov. The dude is fast as shit, hits hard as shit. I don't know that CJ Vergara is a bad opponent for him, but there is like a way where CJ Vergara could win this fight. I mean, it's pretty clear. Survive round one, try to take over as the fight goes on, and that's kind of his usual game plan, is to weaponize the cardio, weaponize the durability, but we've also seen him hurt in some spots. He's been able to survive. He hasn't been knocked out in the UFC. I think he got armbarred by Tatsuro Taira, so he's been submitted before, but I don't think he's been knocked out. This could be the spot where Temirov just starches him, because he throws with intense heat. He's very fast, and going into the Apex UFC debut, probably going to have a lot of pent-up stuff going on, and he's probably going to want to take some heads off. CJ is a little bit older for a flyweight. I think this is kind of a guy that the UFC is like, we like you, CJ, but we've given you some tough matchups in the past. Like they gave him Taira, they gave him Aisum Almabayev, and he looked okay in the Almabayev fight, but he's not like he's winning. He's just kind of out there surviving. And I think Temirov comes in here and gets a win. I'm not a huge guy that's going to lay minus 345 chalk on him, but for a pick, I got to go with the Uzbekistan guy here in Ramazan Temirov. Abdul Razak Alhassan taking on Josh Fremd. Not a big Josh Fremd guy. I've always thought that he could look a little bit better, but he just disappoints every time out, honestly. Not that I've bet big on him or anything, but he's a tall guy. He's got a good frame. And I feel like he could use his frame a little bit better, but he doesn't have the best takedown defense. He doesn't really hit dudes hard on the feet. His cardio really isn't that great. And in this matchup against Alhassan, I think he's going to be in danger, grave danger, very early on. If he can weather that and get to the second and the third round, maybe he could take over. But I think Alhassan wins the first round at a pretty high clip, if not KOs him. Josh Fremd's not a guy that's the most durable. He makes some mistakes in there. It just really comes down to if he can survive. And I'm just going to bet on no, because I think Alhassan has shown over the course of 3 rounds that he's not a complete gas bag. He went to a competitive decision with Joaquin Buckley. He got a round 2 knockout against Hiberio. Hiberio is a gas bag, but he still got the knockout there. And I think Alhassan's just the overall more dangerous guy. And even if he needs to, Josh Fremd's not the best wrestler. Alhassan's got that judo to throw to fall back on. He could get takedowns just from those clinch scenarios. If he needs to, he can just ride out some top control. Okay, give me Alhassan for the pick. Not gonna say it, but I was gonna say something, but I'm not gonna say it. Daniel Rodriguez and Alex Morono. Same thing with Morono, dude. I know you can't judge a fighter off their last fight, but we've seen the progression. I should say the digression. I don't know if that's a word, but the dude's fallen off. Okay, Alex Morono's fallen off. He's been outstruck, I think, in his last 4 fights in the UFC, and he just hasn't looked good. Now, he's picked up a couple wins in those, but against very low-level competition. Tim Means and Court McGee, 2 very, very old dudes that actually make Alex Morono look young. Not a good look there. I just don't think I don't think he has an ability to hurt anybody on the feet. His offensive wrestling is not good. Now, I think his only way to win this fight is if Daniel Rodriguez shoots some sloppy takedown and Alex Morono finds a submission. Outside of that, I think it's D-Rod all the way. D-Rod's got more power on the feet, more volume, better cardio. And the way that D-Rod loses is getting put on his back. And I don't really see Morono offensively wrestling. And if he does, I think he's going to gas himself out. So I like Daniel Rodriguez this week. I was kind of not really feeling either side. But when I look at this fight, I think D-Rod's got better volume, more durability, better cardio, and more power. And I just really haven't seen anything over the last few fights to be okay with Alex Morono. D-Rod's losing to Calvin Gastelum, iron chin, solid volume, and he literally weighed like probably 10, 15 pounds more than Daniel Rodriguez in that fight, losing to Ian Gary, losing to Neil Magny. Morono's looking awful against Nico Price. Okay, I got to take that into account. It's not Alex Morono this week. It's 100% Daniel Rodriguez for me. Grant Dawson, Rafa Garcia. I like Grant Dawson. I like his finishing abilities when he gets people to the ground. But when he's on the feet, it's just like you're holding your breath, man. Ever since he's got knocked out by Bobby Green, you're holding your breath. I don't think he's like some terrible striker, but he moves a little bit weird. And I think that's probably just to try to throw off his opponents, to try to get him to the ground. But once he gets his opponent to the ground, he's nasty. Okay, he's got crazy top control, solid ground and pound, the ability to throw in that body triangle, get to your back, and just play from there. It's really, really good. And I don't really think Rafa Garcia has a ton for him. On the feet, I think Garcia is probably the better striker, but I just don't really see this fight playing out on the feet. I think Grant Dawson does get the takedowns. I think he does do some damage on top. Maybe he's threatened with a choke or two, and I think he gets his hand raised. Give me Grant Dawson for a pick. I think this one's pretty straightforward. Would I lay the chalk on him? Probably not, because there's not a ton of value, to get from a minus 425 line, especially with a guy that has been knocked out at around that same price. So Grant Dawson is the pick, but probably one I'll stay away from a money line perspective. Chidi and Njokuani, Jared Gooden. Chidi was on that 3-fight losing streak. He picks up a win over Reese McKee. I think Reese McKee is terrible. Jared Gooden, on the other hand, picked up a big win against Wellington Turman. Now, I don't think Wellington Turman's a terrible fighter. I don't think he's the best fighter. I think he's a middling guy. And Gooden was getting touched up a little bit on the feet, got taken down. But in round 2, I think he has this ability to just throw down throughout 3 rounds. He's not a guy that's super chinny. I think Chidi's going to be a lot more dangerous early in the fight, that's for sure. And I think Chidi could potentially knock him out in round 1. But over the course of 3 rounds, I think Jared Gooden's going to do the more work. And I think he could actually take over into round 2, into round 3, maybe find a late finish. So I'm going to side with the cardio and a little bit more durability. Chidi has been knocked out multiple times, been submitted multiple times. I don't really think his cardio is that good. I don't think his heart is all that good, honestly. You watch that fight with Olashaychek. He had Olashaychek pretty much knocked out in the first round. Then he gets taken down and he gets ground and pounded out. It's just like, what's going on there? Like, if things start to go wrong for Chidi, I feel like he takes the door out. We saw that in the Gregory Rodriguez fight too. He had Gregory Rodriguez's face pretty much off, completely off. His nose, or the bridge of his nose, was gone. And then in round 2, stuff starts to not go his way, and then he crumbles. I think Jared Gooden, if he can take the shots early, I think he can take over. He's a junkyard dog. He's got the submission ability. He's got the knockout ability. Give me Jared Gooden for the pick. There's another underdog for you. Brad Tavares, Jung Young Park. I'm going to go with Jung Young Park just because he's younger. I think his cardio is solid. I think his grappling, he can go grapple offensively if he needs to. And I think his volume, if I say his volume is going to be a little bit more than Brad Tavares here. Now, Brad, aging guy. We've seen him knocked out a couple times in his last 3 fights. Not a good look for a guy that's really relied on his durability throughout the years. He relies on his takedown defense and his durability, and looks like the durability might be leaving him a little bit. Not that Jung Young Park's a big KO puncher, but he can just rack up a ton of shots. And if Brad can't really throw anything back at him that he can respect, then it can go downhill for him. I think Park does win this fight if he needs to. He can throw that volume to the top, mix in the takedowns. Not really something that Chris Weidman's doing, type of thing. A win over Chris Weidman in your last 3 fights is and it was his first fight back. So I don't know. I think I got to go with Jung Young Park here. Even coming off the split decision loss where he got wrestled up, I don't think Brad Tavares is going to be doing that. And I think Park gets his hand raised here. Give me the Iron Turtle. And I hope he does a little dance after he gets the win too. There's nothing I want to see more than the Iron Turtle swing those hips around, boys. Let's go. Main event, Brandon Royval and Tatsuro Taira. Very interested in Brandon Royval, but I've never been a huge Brandon Royval guy just because I don't really think his punches hurt anybody. And he's getting these knockouts by knees and stuff. And if you look at the guys that he's finished over the years, it's Mateusz Nicolau and Matt Schnell. Yeah, I don't know. Now I'm going to say Tatsuro Taira's a little bit more durable than those guys. And I think he's younger. I think he's still improving. I think his stand-up is solid. The way I see Royval winning this fight is if he can take over later. But I think early in the fight, Taira can get takedowns. Royval has like a 40% takedown defense. It's not good. I think Taira's top game is really solid. His control on the ground is very solid. And if you give this guy one little opening, he's going to take advantage of it. So I think Taira does get this one done. The favorite status, I think he should be the favorite. I don't know if he should be this big of a favorite, but I think he could potentially cover it with an early submission because Royval, he's a scrappy dude. He's going to create chaos in there, which is great. But inside that chaos, there can be some openings for Taira to snatch something up. And on the feet, I think Taira is good enough to deal with Royval. I mean, Royval will throw volume. He'll be really herky-jerky. He'll be a little bit awkward. But I don't know that it's super effective. Like his win over Brandon Moreno, he threw over twice the amount of volume as Brandon Moreno. I feel like if Brandon Moreno actually just threw punches, he probably would have won that fight. But for some reason, he was just not throwing as much as he should have. And Royval literally won that fight off of volume. So I don't know how much stock I could put into that win over Moreno because I didn't really think Moreno looked good at all. Could it be due to Royval? Maybe. But I do think I'm going to have to go with Tatsuro Taira to get this one done. Still very young. I think he's coming into his own here, and I think the flyweights, they need a little bit more of a face. They need some more people to be in there to challenge Pantoja because nobody's really doing it right now. So give me Tatsuro Taira for the official pick. Once again, appreciate y'all for watching. Please hit the like and subscribe button for me. Let me know down in the comments your picks. I'll try to keep you all up to date with what's going on with the hurricane and the baby coming, but hopefully everything works out. Hopefully we can keep the power on and keep getting the content out for you guys. So appreciate y'all for watching. Till next time, AJ Picks. We out.